What's up YouTube, Webberz05 coming out today with Q&A number 46. So guys, before I get into the Q&A, I apologise about the background noise. That's just my air conditioning unit. It's absolutely scorching here in the UK, and frankly it's the only thing that's keeping me going today. So once again, today's questions are brought to you by Dark84 for all your great Yugi-tuber needs. So without further ado, I'll get into the questions, or rather I will do, but first there's a quick note for the first two questions. So, first two questions about a couple of duels with my Highlander Yuya deck. One was a match against Emma's Light Swans, and the other was in the character deck Endurance. I don't know if you've seen them, but I can link you those games if you like, but here they are. Otherwise, possible spoiler alert. So, I haven't watched any of them, I'm afraid, so I'll just have to give my opinion based on the concept of the scenario as opposed to what actually happened. So, one, did you like how I won a game with Runai's Pendulum Dragon? So if I'd seen it, I probably would have, but as for the concept, yes, I do like that very much. Runai's is probably one of my favourite fusion monsters. When I was first getting properly back into the game during Duelist Alliance formats, that was probably one of the first fusion monsters that I started using in my deck. So, and I've had some very good times with Runai's. It's a very good card. Really like it. So yeah, definitely quite happy with that. And two, did you like how I held off attacks from Boral End Dragon and Borreload Savage Dragon and then won with Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon? It was the closest and intense game me and George have ever had. So that sounds rather quite interesting, and I'm probably going to have to give that a watch later. But yeah, winning with Dark Rebellion is always pretty fun. I myself have done some fun things with Dark Rebellion back in the day, particularly on some of the virtual games. I threw in ways of being able to give Dark Rebellion additional materials. I think it was through means of I think the main ones I used were Overlay Regen and Xyz unit. So summon it, activate Overlay Regen, attach it to it, equip it with Xyz unit. Then I can use its effect twice in one turn, just like in the anime, so it's great, it's fun. These next ones are about 7 of my top 10 favourite Link monsters, because I already asked about 3 of them. That's fair enough. Quick drink for it. So question 3, thoughts on Flame Administrator? He's alright. I kind of forgotten what he does. I'm gonna have to quickly just search that on Mirror right now. I apologise guys, I probably should have prepped for this in advance, but I know what I'm like. I'm just kind of like a spur of the moment kind of thing. Yes, 25th quarter century, everybody knows. Mod search. Rolling was Super Troll getting 800. Okay, so yeah, for an 800 buff on all your Link monsters, that's pretty good. And for a pretty generic Cyberburst, that's pretty good as well, so probably really good for a Cyberburst deck. I can see why it got reprinted in the Salamine Great Structure deck. So overall, pretty decent. Not necessarily hugely great, but for an in-archetype card, pretty good. 4, thoughts on Gaia Saber the Lightning Shadow. I do quite like Gaia Saber. So far I like every single one of the trend that they've been doing with Gaia every time they release a new summoning method, which is give Gaia a version of that summoning method. But they didn't do it with Pendulum, which kind of irritates me, but you know, maybe someday. We'll see. But so far, yeah, I like most of Gaia's retrains. They've all been really cool so far. And Gaia the Lightning Saber is no exception to this. I've actually got one in my collection on my co-link page. So I basically designed the page that every single monster is co-linked to each other. And so I've got Gaia Saber the Lightning Shadow at the top for my left, right, and down one. Yeah, overall I think it's a really nice artwork as well, so yeah, really like it. 5, thoughts on Link Karibo. Link Karibo's had a lot of use for a lot of players. I don't think I've ever used it too much. I might have done at some point, but I'm not entirely sure. But overall, it's pretty useful. Good way to just store protect yourself from one attack, similar to most Karibos. So overall pretty good, and naturally, because it's got the recycle effect of tributing a level 1 monster to bring itself back, makes it a bit more flexible. So pretty nice. 6. Thoughts on Mech Knight Crusader Abramax? Abramax is overall a very good link monster, very powerful link core. My only issue with Abramax is he's not exactly the most practical thing to summon, because you have to commit to like a minimum of 2 link 2s just to be able to go into it. So not exactly very easy to go into. I mean, I think probably the easiest way I can think of summoning it is probably within a Numeron deck, because you could just go Numeron Calling, drop all 4 materials, drop the 4 Numerons from the extra deck. If for any reason you can't kill your opponent that turn, maybe phase 2 you can just link all 4 of them off into Abramax. So pretty easy like that. But as I said, overall I think he's really good, just not necessarily the most easy or practical thing for summoning. 7. Thoughts on Firewall Dragon? Firewall Dragon was absolutely broken at his release, because once again Konami made a mistake in their wording and just made something a bit too good for what it was supposed to be doing. But so yeah, it was very good in the prime, very overly used quite much, very easily got hit to 1 soon after its release, and subsequently ended up getting banned, making a record as the first protagonist ace monster to ever be banned in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is insane. I mean, it was justified, it needed to go, it was too good. And then they decided to errata it down so that... Sorry. It's really tired today, guys. So naturally they watered down Firewall's effect so that now the special summon effect is only on Cyberse monsters, and it's also only on once per turn, which, again, pretty good. That one. Or was it? Did they make it once per turn, or did they just only make it so that you could summon Cyberse? Either way, it's dramatically less abusable now, so it's fine. 8. Thoughts on Decode Talker? I think everyone has played Decode Talker in 1 or 2 decks throughout their careers. Particularly for those who first got into the game during Link format, because at the time, Decode Talker was the only decent generic Link that people could play, so that basically for lots of people, like including Pendulum players like myself, it was the only way that we could keep our decks like fully flowing. Some decks were able to just play around the new rules sets when Links came out, but Pendulum was not one of them, because they basically completely screwed us over, which is kind of fairly justified because we were very broken in the predecessor format and Master Rule set, so yeah. They kind of bounced up, and Decode Talker just gave pretty much everyone a good chance to play their old decks in a way that still works, and it also just gave people a way to just like practice getting used to Link monsters, so yeah. Overall I really like Decode Talker and what he's done for the game. His alternate art is also quite nice of what they rigged in as well. And finally, question number 9, thoughts on Power Code Talker. I quite like Power Code Talker's design and how he looks. His effects, not bad, but probably not the easiest thing to use in my opinion, but overall, yeah, he's pretty cool. I'd probably like to see a bit more of him in some of your matches, but naturally I suppose he is a bit situational, so who knows. And on that note, guys, that's all the questions I have for this week, so thank you very much, Dr. Patrician for your questions, very amusing as always, and if anyone else has any questions for me, I do these Q&As every Wednesday, UK time, morning, typically afternoon, depending on my schedule. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'm going to go chill with my AC, and I will see you next time.